Hello everyone, I'm now showing you how to stitch this. I did a poor job on some of this because I didn't really show where I was stitching. It's not even in the camera view, unfortunately. Right now I'm stitching the clip holder. And I start on the top hole and then do the double loop over the edge to make sure that it locks in that edge, particularly where you're going to be pushing the clip into. That's important to double strengthen that one uh, portion where uh, the clip slides right into the little pocket because that's where a lot of the pressure is going to be applied. So I've already done the one of them and I'm doing the second one right now just to show you. It's really straightforward. If you know how to stitch leather, this is obvious how to do this. You're just going to stitch the clip holder in place on both sides. And no, there's no magic to it here. And the way this thing works is I'm creating 3 pockets for items with actual clips installed on them to slide into. You know, stuff that I readily need access to that I don't want to put inside the pouch. Like a tape measure, a pencil, and a sheetrock knife. Those are the 3 items I'm planning to use on the outside. I didn't show the second one, primarily because if you can see how one's done, you know how the other one's done. It's the same way. So now I'm going to be working on the inside divider. I've already done one of them, so you can see what it looks like. That's how it looks like. You choose which side is smooth, which one's rough. It really doesn't matter on the inside, I don't think. But I am going to stitch the rounded section of the flat inside divider towards the Swiss tool in the center. And I'll have the more open section of the divider towards the EDC on one side and the ratcheting screwdriver on the other. That way, the bulbing out movement of the divider actually helps to hold the Swiss tool in place, because it helps to provide a little bit of, it's the heaviest item, it needs more pressure on it to retain it, in addition to the little clip that's already on it. Now you see these buttons are a little offset, and that's because my Swiss tool has an actual clip on it. I had to offset the buttons. But in reality, you'd want to center these. That would be the ideal. Perfectly honest with you. So now I'm just threading the needle. It's pretty straightforward. This is a fairly long video, so please pardon the difficulty. When I made these little nubs, I had a real hard time getting the tip to be just right. So there's like little ridges and edges on it that tend to catch the thread, so it's kind of hard to thread the needle. It's one of the problems. You can't buy these little stubs. At least I tried. I couldn't find any. But they're extremely helpful in tight spots. Unfortunately, you pretty much have to use forceps to do it right, because when you're stitching inside of something, it can be challenging. So here I am. I'm going to be stitching the second divider inside, as you can see. I'm going to slide it in there, and the first line is pretty straightforward. It's like stitching 2 pieces of leather together. It's not a big deal. It's when you start doing the round and you start stitching it around that little rounded section of the divider that it'll start to make it into a divider. This isn't the best video, I have to admit. I kept getting out of the frame. I should have readjusted the camera like I just did. I had to redo all the audio on this, unfortunately. It's painful to say, but I kind of suck at making videos. And there's no point doing the long ones because nobody watches them anyway. Bless their hearts, you know. Yeah, nobody wants to watch an hour of someone stitching. It's painful. So I did a double loop on the edge there. I'm not going to worry too much about looping it over the actual edge, because I'm going to do that when I do the decorative stitching along that flap. I'm going to do a little stitch over the edge to sort of seal in that divider. So you can see there now I'm just using the stubs to slowly work it in, moving it through. It's a fairly long video. It would take forever to watch it. I mean, we're talking an hour of stitching, maybe more. just to do this one divider, because I have to use a forceps every single time. Particularly when you get to the round, you pretty much have to use the forceps, because it's really hard to get it in there to do that. It's easier on the first one, because you can do the straight stitching on the first one all the way to the round, and then you start to get into the difficulty of creating the rounded section that holds the two pieces together. But on the second one, it's already in that shape, and you're dealing with the complexity of work inside of a tight space. So you can see there, I'm using the forceps to push it in one hole, and then slip it into the other, and then pushing it through little by little. It's a slow process. It's not exactly the best way to do it, but it's the only way I know of to really do that kind of an inside divider. Maybe an expert would have a better idea of how to do it. Bless their hearts. I really appreciate all these the efforts of all these experts on here that are showing some really good stuff. I'm not an expert. I'm an amateur. I want to make that clear. And kind of the point of doing these series is, hey, if you want to do something in leather, but you don't know what you're doing, or you're not an expert, you're just an amateur, there's no harm in trying. It doesn't, it doesn't, it's not a big deal if you screw something up and it doesn't look right, and you learn a lesson, move on. And that's the way I see it. But you get to a point where, even as an amateur, you do stuff that you like and you're proud of. I actually like the way this thing turns out. It actually looks really nice. I keep saying actually again. I don't know why. Literally, actually, and probably. I love those adverbs. So I'm doing the round now. You can see I'm slowly pushing it into those holes. Black's hard to stitch into with black threading. It's just really hard to see the holes. It's the worst leather color for stitching, in my opinion. Slowly working my way around the inside on that round, and it'll start to take shape as a divider here in a bit. So I'm going to slow it down a little bit so you can see that. So you can see a little bit more about what it looks like as I do the round. See there, it's slowly working its way around that little section. It can be a challenge getting the holes to line up, but when you tighten it in, pull it in, it eventually will pull that divider into the shape that you want it. The round's actually the trickiest part of it, I think. Slow but sure. If you have to do one hole at a time, there's nothing wrong with doing that. In fact, I had to do it here because I couldn't get the holes to line up. So I do is push the little nub through one hole, move the flap side, push the hub into the other hole, like I'm doing here, and then do the second hole, and then when you tug it in, it pulls that leather divider into place. Once you get to the straight portion, then you have it's easier to line up those holes. The round's the part that's hard to get to line up. So I'm still working on it here. This is just the two dividers. I imagine if you did more than this, it'd get even more complicated. But this is as large of a sheath as I would suggest to anybody. I mean, even on the side where I wear it, it's a little bit bulky, just a little bit. But it's just big enough that it carries what I need, and just small enough that it's still practical. If it were any bigger, it'd be too big. If it were any smaller, it wouldn't hold everything I need. Here I am, I'm going on to the straight now. I'm just almost finished with the round portion. Still doing two holes at once. I'm sorry, one hole at a time. I misspoke. Almost to the straight. Once you get to that straight, then you'll be able to line the holes up a lot easier, because it'll have created that form of the round, as I call it, and then the leather is easier to piece together and stitch straight in. There you go. Still working. Still doing one hole at a time. Now I had a lot of mink oil tucked away in these little holes that made these needles really slick. That is one of the flaws of doing mink. is that mink oil gets really slick and it gets on your needles, it gets on your hands, and it actually becomes difficult to move the needle. So some would probably say, why didn't you just do the mink oil after? And I probably could have. But, yeah, I didn't. So there you have it. I caused a problem for myself and raised the difficulty level of it. Okay, I'm at the point now where I'm able to just push into the 2 holes at once. Just like you see. I'm on the straight portion, the second part of the straight portion of this. So I'm going to speed this up. Now that you've seen me do the round. There's something kind of soothing about doing something like this. Just watching something take shape. Creating something from materials. And, being creative at the same time. Doing something that challenges your mind and is nice to look at. It has aesthetic value. There is a functional design here in that it serves as a sheath for everyday carry items. But there's also an aesthetic design here where the eye is appealing, where there's elements that are appealing to the eye. The color, the contrast along the threading areas, where you get like a darker section of leather versus the lighter, creates a nice contrast. Plus you got the contrast of the black clip holder with the Celtic braided design and the lettering. All that creates an aesthetic design. Plus the cartridge casing, ammunition, buttons helps to enhance that overall aesthetic design. Getting closer to being done here, and then I'll tie it off and then move on to the next video. I noticed that one of these buttons doesn't hold very well. I hate to say it, but I'm afraid that one of them I may have to remove and redo it. And that's something that's not enjoyable. It's kind of a pain to remove something and redo it after the pouch is completely finished. Because this project is finished. And I'm working right now on doing the second one, the cell phone case that's designed for traveling. Those nubs are really helpful when you're working in these tight spaces. And forceps, of course. I honestly don't know if there's a good sewing machine for doing this kind of stitching, but I imagine there is. They got a sewing machine for almost everything. Okay, I'm almost at the end here, and what I'll do is I'll do a double loop on that top portion just to make sure that it's nice and solid and secure. And then I'll cut the threading on the inside and then use a lighter to burn it and make sure that the threading doesn't come out. Because it will. If you don't burn the end of the thread to make a little bit of a bulb in place, then the threading will pop out on you at some point. So this is the first of the next series of videos I'm going to be doing. The next one's going to be a travel cell phone case. Then the one after that I'm going to do a passport wallet. Because I am planning to be doing some traveling here soon. Possibly even moving to another country. So I really need to have this stuff in place. I'm burning the ends of the thread now and just sort of checking it for fit, and it fits great. I like it. It's looking good. On to the next video. Okay, in the next video here I'm going to be stitching all along that flap edge. It's just a straight stitch. I'm not even stitching 2 pieces of leather together, so except in the area of the clip holder. I'll do the sides of the clip holder when I do the rest of the flap. I'm going to speed this up because it's a straight stitch. There's nothing fancy about it. I am going to use a stitching station. I don't do this very often, but in this case it'd be helpful when you do long stretches of stitching. It's helpful to have a stitching station to work with, to hold the project in place so you're not constantly holding it, trying to stitch with one hand the whole time. So you can see I do 2 needles, one, and then pull, one, pull. Now, one problem with this stitching station I made by hand, because I didn't have the money to buy one, just made it out of scrap wood, is that rod at the bottom there. If you see it, that's the way that I have to clamp it together. The thread keeps getting caught on the bolt head or the rod. That is one of the flaws with this particular design of the stitching station that I have here. Okay, I'm making progress. I'm almost at the point where I'll start stitching in the one side or edge of the clip holder. Now this part here I'm going to do a double loop, because that's the section where the clip's going to go into, and you want to strengthen that edge. At the other end of that, where it doesn't have any pressure applied, I'm just going to stitch normal. There's no point in double looping the bottom as well, just the top, in my opinion. So moving along, I'm almost done with the stitch holder, the edge of it, and it gets stitched into the flap with the rest of it and everything. I'm going to speed up the playback a little bit because it's just a lot more of the same kind of stitching. Zip, 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 zip. Reposition, and then just keep stitching through. I stitch, pull, stitch, pull, stitch, pull to pull it in nice and tight. I'm almost to the next clip holder. Let me slow it down a little bit so you can see. Oh, something happened there. Oh, a cat. Yeah, a cat literally drug a squirrel into the garage, so I have to deal with that. Okay, I'm back into it. I just finished up doing the stitching on the second side of the clip holder, and I'm almost to the point where I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop right a little bit lower than the top of the rounded section over there, where it rolls over and forms this the top portion of the pouch or sheath. That's where I'm going to end it and double loop it off, and then I'll burn the end of the thread to tie it off. And then I'll move on to doing the sides. There you go. I'm going to roll this on the inside. The other pouch or pocket I did, the lens kit with the elaborate pattern on it, that I stitched onto the inside so that it would sort of protrude outward. I didn't like it. I preferred it protrude inward. So right now I'm stitching the straight portion of this side, as you can see. I haven't done this one, video of this one before, so I'm going to keep it relatively slow just so you can see it. I'm going to try to get it into position so you can see a little bit better. There you go. It's like just stitching two pieces of leather together at the beginning. You're just slowly stitching it along, stitching along. Now I know the piece looks larger than what it should be, but when you get to stitching that into place, it's going to pull that inward, and that extra bit of leather is going to dip on the edge. And there will be some excess which I'll have to trim. That's inevitable. You can't get around that. I'm right at the round now, as you can see here. Slowly working it in. I'm going to slow this down a little bit so you can see it. There we go. I'm doing a little bit at a time. Sorry, this video is not the best quality. The one flaw with these nubs is they're a little tricky to work with, particularly when they're coated. It keeps bogging down. Sorry about that. So I'll slowly work it around. Right now I'm doing one hole at a time, right along the round. Push through and then back to the other side. Now, when I did the other way, where I stitched on the inside instead of the outside, I actually notched it. And you don't have to notch it, but it does help on the inside to notch it. The problem is it doesn't look very good on the outside. When you notch it, it just doesn't look good. You're better off just leaving it unnotched on the outside and then just work it around and then trim the excess, in my opinion. Almost done with the round, and then I can back to straight stitching again. Doing this kind of work, it's time consuming, but the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the least likely you'll make mistakes. Since I'm still an amateur, I do still make a lot of mistakes on it. Okay, I'm at the straight now. Now it's a matter of just doing the straight stitching. So I'll speed it up here a little bit. Now I only showed the one side because you're basically going to do the other side the same way. There's no difference. So I didn't include a video for both sides. There was no reason to. So whatever I do on this side is what you're going to do on the other side. It's pretty straightforward. And as I said before, I always start the stitching at the very end, like I did. So that when I do the round and all the way to the other side, you don't have to worry about trying to match up the holes to the end, because that can be deeply frustrating. Believe me, you do not want to do all that stitching and realize the holes that you've got an extra hole or two at the other end. Okay, I'm double looping it now, and I'm going to finish this puppy out. And make it nice and tight and secure right there at the end. Now burn the end of the thread to secure it. As you can see here, now I'm trimming the edge. Let me slow it down a little bit so you can see. All I'm doing is just trimming the edge, trying to match up the side with the other, and then I'll sand it, I'll bevel it. Actually, I'll wait to do the beveling until the very end when I've got both sides done. That's when I'll do the beveling and get it nice and secure on both sides. Okay. Now I'm going to start, I'm going to bevel a little bit of it just to make sure that I've trimmed enough of it. As you can see, I'm not very good at beveling, but part of the problem is this tool is just not the best quality. It's been a while since I've sharpened it, and it really does need to be sharpened. But that's one of the reasons why I use black on the edges, so that I don't have to worry about it as much. The black hides a lot. I hate to say it, but the black has a way of hiding the mistakes. Trim a little bit more there on the edge. In order to clean it up, make it look nicer. The next video will be the beveling and trimming and the finalization of this piece. I'm not going to show stitching the second side because it's the same thing as this one. You're literally just going to do the same thing. So there you have it. That's the stitching of the dividers, the stitching of the flap, including the clip holder, and the stitching of the first side. Assume that the second side is going to be stitched the same way. And that's it. That's what it looks like right there. Has a nice look to it. I like it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it.